Hey there, this is Josh from Career Services at Tyndale Center for Academic Excellence. And welcome to the Finding Your Way video series. In this series, we're going to take a look at a model for understanding your long-term life journey, both professionally and a bit personally. In this video, we're going to look at step 1, which is identifying your calling. Simply put, your calling is your what and it's your who. It has something to do with what you are now and what you are to be one day. As a result, your calling is very related to your identity. Who are you? And who are you to be? Now, the reason why I want to associate your calling with your identity is because it's something similar to what Reggie McNeil says in his book, Practicing Greatness. While talking about callings and missions, he says that people often make the mistake of thinking that their calling is synonymous with their mission and their careers that they have. He gives an example where someone might say something like, I'm called to be a pastor, followed by specifically where they think they're to do that job and with who and where and how and all those details. One of Reggie's main criticisms of this is that this seems to somehow reduce the spiritual depth of a genuine call, almost as though fulfilling a particular role within society or doing a certain job is sufficient for living a meaningful life and a higher calling. It's as though your entire identity and everything that you are is just what you do for a job. And McNeil butts back on that because he stresses that we're more than just our jobs. I agree with this. I think our calling is far beyond what we do. It's more about what we are. Because if we use a traditional sense of calling, our calling is more about a vision that has been placed in our lives. It's more of a summons to become something greater. It's an invitation to move from point A to point B, from where you are now to where you will be at the end of a larger life journey. Which also means your calling takes time to grow into. It requires you to go on a bit of an adventure. But on this adventure, you will be refined, sharpened, challenged, and grown into a unique person. With that said, your calling is what and who you are invited to become. But to discern this, we need to look back to where you are now and who are you now. What are your personal values? What about your strengths? What about unique characteristics that you have? Because chances are part of your calling is to grow into these traits more. Not always, but odds are, yes. For example, let's look at your personal values. They will give insight into the values you are to continue embodying throughout the rest of your life. Or your personal strengths. Chances are your calling is to continue refining and mastering those strengths. And your unique characteristics can give you insight into the character you are to refine. Granted, humans are very messy. We all are. And there's parts of us that are great and fantastic, but there's also parts that are still growing. We're still learning about, discovering, refining. And then there's parts that maybe we're not too fond of, or maybe we don't want those parts in our lives anymore. It happens to everyone. And all of these parts are either going to get stronger and more pronounced, or they're going to diminish and disappear. So the question is, as far as your calling is concerned, which parts are you going to grow? Which parts are you going to let diminish? Because that is the journey of pursuing your calling. Pursuing your calling means becoming more of the person you were made to be, and becoming less of the person you're not. It's about strengthening the characteristics of the person you're to be and doing away with the person you're not and the characteristics that just aren't you. Now, that's all easier said than done, so let's talk about some practical work. There's a lot of things you can do to learn about your calling and who you're growing into. Your personality, for example, is a large part of your calling. That gives a lot of insight. So go do personality tests. Do many of them. Repeat them over time. Evaluate them. Determine which results are most like you and which are least like you. But I will repeat that again. Repeat them. That repetition is actually quite important, because each time you do the test, you might find the results a little bit different. And so your goal then is to look for the consistent patterns of who you are. Same thing with strengths. There's lots of strength tests and skill lists you can take a look at. Look through those resources. Repeat those tests. Look at those lists again in the future. See what stands out to you. Evaluate your findings, and then again look at the patterns of your life. For your values, likewise, there's lots of resources for those on the internet. There's lists of values that you can find. There's small games and activities you can engage in. There are some tests you can take, but here's a quick and easy one. Simply just get a piece of paper, sit down, and spend a session brainstorming what your most important values are and strengths. Your goal is not to get perfection and to understand yourself perfectly well, but to generate as large of a list of values that are important to you. Set a timer. Take a couple minutes to do that, whether it's 5, 10, 15 minutes. And then when you're done, the time is up, evaluate that list. Put it in a list of top 3, a top 5, or top 10, whatever works for you. Categorize them even, maybe. Of course, you certainly want to take into account your personal belief system. What does your belief system say about you and your life? What do you have to learn about that? That might take some research. Look into your belief systems a little bit. Develop it further if you need to. What parts of your beliefs need to be challenged? What parts need to be grown? Do any parts need to be reinforced and strengthened or practiced more? Play with it. Use some creativity. See what you find as you go through this. And as you're going through this phase of self-discovery, chances are you're going to find components of your calling as you engage these activities. They're going to be there in front of you, but it might not always be clear. And so you're going to want to go through a time of discernment and reflection. Keep track of your thoughts and your findings as you go through this. Discuss them with others. Talk to your loved ones, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your peers at work or in your studies. Read books, watch videos. Also speak with counselors or mentors. As you do all of this, keep an eye out for those things that seem natural to you, because odds are you're called to pursue those further. I can't stress how helpful counseling can be for this journey, though. Many therapists and counselors are trained in personality tests and strength tests. At the very least, they can help you to evaluate and discuss your results. And they can help you to explore the underlying influences of things like your upbringing, your culture, and your life experiences and the things you've been through. These things, in and of themselves, actually can make it difficult to discern your calling accurately. But these things can also be helpful for gaining insight into your calling. So, explore them with someone. Don't travel this journey alone if you don't have to. Anyways, to summarize, your calling is what and who you are invited to become. Your goal is to become more of this person and less of the person you're not. This has been step 1 of the Finding Your Way series. Step 2 involves building upon this foundation that is your calling by helping you to then identify your mission, your next steps. So this has been Josh from Career Services, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.